Have you ever noticed that throughout the recent chapters in Poppy Playtime, there's this emphasis on the red smoke and its capabilities? Because in chapter 3, we end up hallucinating a giant Huggy Wuggy that tries to kill us, and in chapter 4, when the real Huggy is trying to kill us, we also see the red smoke enter the room that leads to the labs. So what's the deal with the red smoke, and what's it even for? Why would a toy company need smoke that makes you hallucinate? Well, that's exactly what I'm going to be figuring out in this video. So I'm going to be going over each appearance of the red smoke and how it sometimes acts differently, as it sometimes makes us hallucinate and other times it can literally kill us. Once we make it into playcare in chapter 3, Ollie, or the prototype, tells us to go to the gas production zone, telling us to move the red smoke, but he doesn't necessarily give us a description as to what it does, but just tells us to move the red smoke to the other side for him.
Welcome to the gas production zone, the beating heart of the whole evil playcare system. All that gas you see coming from the machine is made right here in the factory. It's called the red smoke. Right now, it's all headed off to the right. We need to make that red smoke go left instead. That's how we can get to him.
However, we get to experience the red smoke ourselves once we make it to Home Sweet Home, as very early on in the building, we come across a door which, when opened, shows a room flooded with red smoke. And because there's not really anything else to do, we decide to go into the room. But when we do, the door we enter disappears, giving us our first sign that we're in a hallucination. And once continuing on through the house, the red smoke disappears, but the hallucination doesn't end, as we're led down this labyrinth-like maze where we're trying to find an exit, which is when we also see Catnap appear right behind us, quickly moving away because we looked at him, which could have been part of the hallucination, but because Catnap could have been the one to dispense the red smoke in the first place, it seems to be the real Catnap, and he was actually watching us go through this hallucination, maybe to test us for what came in the final boss fight. But in the hallucination, we end up finding what seems to be our old office with writing saying, "Guilt haunts you," which makes me think, are we hallucinating our old office? Did we play a part in the Hour of Joy? But then we make it into another room which has a VHS tape, and when playing the tape, it seems to be some kind of intro for new workers at Playtime Co., which could have been us hallucinating because we might have remembered it from when we were originally hired. But as the tape goes on, it slowly gets creepier and creepier until a massive nightmarish Huggy appears out of the TV trying to kill us. So we run down the hallway and realize that it switched to a dead end, which is when Huggy eats us and we wake up from the hallucination seemingly back in real life. And after waking up, we eventually get stuck in a hole where the only way out is to walk through some red smoke. But because it slowly kills us, we have to find a gas mask which allows us to walk straight through the smoke without dying, which is weird because didn't the smoke give us a hallucination at first? Why is this version of the red smoke now trying to kill us? Well, this could have something to do with the potency of the smoke, which I'll go over later. Much later in the chapter though, we eventually make it to the counselor's office, where parts of it also have the red smoke. One of the parts being a hallway where when we try to find a battery and Catnap gives us that grab pack super smack special and knocks our gas mask off, causing us to yet another hallucination, which is weird because the same exact red smoke was just about to kill us, but now it only makes us hallucinate? Well, this leads me to believe that Catnap could actually be dispensing the red smoke in doses, because if sometimes it kills us and sometimes it just makes us hallucinate, this wouldn't make sense if it was the same red smoke, but if instead the smoke has a certain potency depending on how much Catnap releases, then this would all make sense. And this also seems to be the case in the final boss fight, as when Catnap appears out of a doorway, he dispenses the smoke, causing him to look like this weird gray rat looking like thing. And even during the boss fights, we're right next to the red smoke and nothing bad happens to us. But it gets even more interesting in chapter 4, as in the second prison block, we see pipes of red smoke going through the entire block, which would lead me to believe that they could have used the red smoke to put some of them to sleep whenever they would need to transfer the experiments. But then we would also see the red smoke in the secondary labs, which is weird, because if this was a place where the scientists would do experiments, then why would they have the red smoke right around them where they could easily inhale it and hallucinate or possibly even die? But what's even crazier is that this red smoke seems to be even more potent than any of the red smoke we've come across so far, because the gas mask that we use has a timer depending on our air filters, and since it seems to be the exact same gas mask that we use in chapter 3, but now it only has a certain amount of time that you can use it, it seems that this red smoke is a lot more potent than the smoke from chapter 3, causing the filters to need to be replaced. And lastly, we see the red smoke after Huggy Wuggy runs at us trying to kill us, which means that when Leith Pierre was talking about the tape being a trap, it could have been set up so that the room would release red smoke, and Huggy would be released on whoever put the tape in, making them easy prey for Huggy. So it seems that the red smoke can be released in different potencies, but also be used by the prototype to his advantage, which is most likely going to be a big problem for us in chapter 5. But the red smoke does a lot more than this, because when we finally make it to Safe Haven, Poppy tells us her plan of blowing up the entire factory by using the red smoke and some old mining charges, which means that the red smoke could blow up literally the entire factory with ease, which also seems to be the reason that Catnap died back in chapter 3, because when he finally comes down into the room with us, we shock him with the overcharged green grab pack hand. He falls to the ground and is trying to reach us, but then he dispenses the red smoke, most likely in an attempt to make us fall asleep or even kill us. But that's when the red smoke ignited, causing him to be lit on fire, turning this dude into a burnt steak. And the final note in chapter 4 confirms that the red smoke ignites pretty easily, because in it, the person writing the notes tells the operator to not even light a cigarette when the 3 containers labeled A, B, and C come into contact with each other. So not only can the red smoke hallucinate and kill us, but could literally blow up the entire factory, which means if the prototype decides that it's all over, it's all over. If the red smoke is our entire objective in chapter 4, then it's possible that after defeating whatever enemy comes across our path in chapter 5, we could try to blow up the entire factory just like Poppy told us to. But this would also mean that chapter 5 would be the end of the entire Poppy Playtime story, or at least for so far, because if the factory ends up blowing up, we might get another series of Poppy Playtime, kind of like how Five Nights at Freddy's does it, but this time we would be working in the factory before the Hour of Joy, most likely as some sort of scientist, or even as one of the monsters like Huggy Wuggy, and experiencing his story. But what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching, subscribe, and click on this video right here.